please take a moment to acknowledge the person to your left and to your right. And if you will, please reach out and hold their hand. Take a moment to reflect on all of your personal challenges, your problems. Breathe in. Now take a moment to reflect on all our deep community and social problems. Deep breath in. Now imagine, to help address the weight of all our problems, we discover we have access to a collective multi-billion-dollar fund that we can use these resources to lighten our burdens. Now, let go of the hands and shake it all off. See, there is a problem we must face, one that is more pervasive than the pandemic. According to the US Census Bureau, 1 in 3 people in America, 1 in 3 people here in South Texas, Rio Grande Valley, 1 in 3 of you are a renter. And that person may need your love and support. I would know. I was that renter. In 2012, I experienced divorce. I lived in the small town of Edcouch, Texas, population 3,100. But I did not want to leave behind my 2 small sons, Roberto and Michael Jr. So I rented an apartment that was a mere 90-second foot run away. I tested. My rent was $325 per month, including water. But I was a public school teacher with a salary frozen at $40,500 for 5 years straight. After paying child support and the full cost of health insurance on my own, I was not only broke, I was unable to make ends meet. But of course, that life is not sustainable. It's not even right. Now, I should say, plenty of people rent who are happy, healthy, and prosperous. And plenty more rent based on short-term circumstances. But here I was, about to earn a master's in computer science, a teacher in my community, a father, and I could not even survive as a renter on my own. And I did not know what to do, honestly. So I ran away. I went to the University of Texas at Austin, 5 hours away, and got a PhD funded by student loans. But I couldn't even afford to get there. So I went to the Teachers Credit Union and asked for a signature loan. They said, bring us your last 2 paychecks. So I went and got them. They didn't know they were my last 2 paychecks because I didn't have a job. I took that money and went to Austin and, of course, spent most of it to rent yet another apartment. Fast forward 9 years later to the summer of 2021, back in the RGV, a resident of the city of Edinburgh, population 100,000. I now have that PhD, my beautiful wife, plus my 4-year-old daughter, Glory Iris, and a bit more perspective. See, since I was 17, I was zealously committed to social impact. So much so that when I first came to the Rio Grande Valley through Teach for America, I took a very private and personal vow of poverty. I sincerely pledged to put my community above all else, including my own personal enrichment. But in retrospect, I see now that poverty is a perceived inescapable condition. I was just found to be broke. And my community and my family would much prefer that I have access to abundant resources. So I will say, I never once saw the RGV as a poor place. I see abundant possibility, but the reason I simply cannot turn away and tuck into my privilege and enrich myself is I cannot block out the needless, completely solvable suffering of others. So, in 2021, I joyfully quit my last job and voluntarily left a paycheck behind with no safety net. Well, except for my house, which, due to a blend of hard work, good fortune, and perhaps the grace of God, was by this time completely paid for and no debt. So I was free to become an entrepreneur, to create a startup named Viva, which to me means to live well and prosper. But in the beginning, it's just me. I open up my laptop and I start a log of my daily research notes. This humble scene is probably why my now teenage sons say entrepreneur is code for unemployed. But I am unafraid. I am fired up by my passion to solve the very problem I was simply fortunate enough to overcome: renting in America today. Our renters in America today face a terrifying 40 times wealth equity gap. According to a Consumer Survey Finances by the Federal Reserve, the median net worth for a renter is $10,000. But of course, half of all renters have less than that. Homeowners, by contrast, have a median net wealth of $400,000. Most of that is due to the value of their home. Now, every single day, I read dozens of articles about renters, renters, renters. But who are we actually talking about? Almost none of these stories talk about the demographics of renters, who are, according to the US Census, a majority of our historically underestimated groups. A majority of our Black, Hispanic, Latinx, LGBTQ+, and single mom households. 69% of single mom households rent. When my 15-year-old son asked, "What about the single dads?" I checked. Majority home owners. And a vast majority of our lowest income families too often are stuck in a cycle of rent. According to USA Facts, 1 in 4 low-income renters spends 75% of their income on housing. Yet, at the same time, this year, according to the Federal Reserve, America's 44 million renters will spend a collective $1 trillion on rent. Yet too often, they are not treated like a powerful consumer class. Too often, they feel like second-class citizens. So, I rolled up my sleeves and became a landlord. I took most of my savings, pulled in a few friends and family, and bought a set of apartments just up the street here. And we could experiment with these apartments. Now, what many renters may not realize is that being a landlord is scary. You're trusting total strangers to live inside your nest egg. And in fact, per the Census Bureau, more than half of all landlords in America are mom and pop owners with just 1, 2, or 3 renters. This is often their biggest investment outside their personal home. But the fear that they feel, those landlords, the fear I know all too well, it's telling us something. Good renters who simply pay their rent on time and communicate in a timely fashion with their landlords, providing for their family, they cost us far less than those who have unexpected problems. Yet we typically charge renters the same rent no matter what, which means the good renters are helping subsidize the mistakes of the not-so-good renters. Our new idea was simple. What if we offer cash back to good renters so they can begin to save and build wealth to close their equity gap? I mean, if safe drivers can save 40%, why can't good renters earn up to 8% cash back on rent? Why 8%? Simple. When I look back at my first mortgage statement, I noticed only 16% actually went to equity. 8% is halfway there. Substantial. And we discovered that if a renter earns 8% cash back and then invests it wisely, they can build $456,000 in net wealth over 30 years. So that's what we did. We kicked off our 8% cashback program and helped residents begin to save and invest. And in return, they began to go far above and beyond our original expectations. Our very first tenant, Dianita, who loved to decorate, moved in with her family during the devastating 2021 winter storm here in Texas. In the chaos that followed, someone broke into an unoccupied apartment, dragged off a clothes dryer. Instead of complaining about my failure to protect her security or worrying about her own family safety, Dianita took action. She strategically located her cars to deter another break-in, and she volunteered to testify and talk to detectives who came to work the case. Her family later relocated for work to Wisconsin, but her savings and investment fund went with her and continued to grow, and is worth nearly $3,000 today. A big deal considering the average American will have trouble coming up with $500 for an emergency. More good things followed. Residents stayed longer, reducing our vacancy rates, and those who did leave gave us plenty of notice. The cashback program generated buzz. In fact, people were coming up and creating a wait list, offering deposits to secure the next available apartment. Instead of 4 to 6 weeks to replace a resident, we often reduced that to 4 to 6 days. After a full year of operation, a friend who works for a multi-billion-dollar apartment owner helped us analyze our results. And we found that our apartments were 9% more profitable than the national average. The cashback program not only helped residents, it created higher returns for us as owners. Now, when we talk to other landlords about this, they're very curious. But they also say, where's the money for this 8% cashback come from? Well, most landlords actually are familiar with a concept called a rent concession, up to 1 month free to help lure in a new renter. Well, that month is worth 8.3% of the annual rent. It's just math. In our model, instead of gambling that 8% away on a total stranger the first day, we spread it out over 12 months as cashback earned through good behavior. We called this a smart concession. And with a few tweaks to our software, we enabled any landlord to join us and offer cashback, starting with as little as $10, but backed by data that showed offering 8% could be a win-win that actually increases a landlord's overall profits. And then a funny thing happened. A mentor that I first met in Austin, a co-founder of a major tech brand worth billions, took an interest in Viva. He invested in a lot of multifamily funds. These are funds worth billions that can own tens of thousands of apartments across multiple states. And he offered to introduce us to his funds to see if we could replicate our model and spread our cashback concept to these large apartment owners and see if we can reproduce our results. Our small fund was very successful. Our impact meaningful. So this was a gamble. What if, instead of a few dozen landlords reaching a few hundred residents, we could truly make a dent in the broader wealth equity gap? So in 2022, we reached out to 400 different funds across America, and we had meaningful conversations with about 40 of these. And we started to develop a product that would allow these national apartment owners to offer cashback at scale. Then, in 2023, we started working with several of these funds in faraway cities like Dallas, Austin, Atlanta, Boston, and Washington, D.C., and we discovered something surprising. When we went to talk to hundreds and then thousands of renters in these cities, people who are working families living paycheck to paycheck, we found out some of their landlords were already paying a lot of money for very cool benefits, like 24/7 access to a doctor, a bilingual tutor for their kids, even on-site case management by a social worker. The problem was the majority of the renters had no idea that these benefits existed, and so they were dramatically underutilized. When we asked, we discovered our renters often struggled with the very problems these benefits were meant to target. We now felt compelled. As we went door to door, chatted with residents on the phone, we wanted to make sure they knew not only about our cashback program, but also about the doctor and the tutor. After all, you have to stay healthy to go to work, to pay your rent, to earn cash back. So, we made a tactical shift. Instead of focusing solely on our cashback program, what if we could bundle and deliver a variety of benefits to residents, primarily via their mobile phone? And so we did. Our new new model, which help renters access essential benefits like health, education, and financial wellness. It actually resembles employers' benefits. Great employers are expected to give great benefits in exchange for employees signing away their labor. Not as charity, but because healthy, happy employees stick around and increase productivity. And it turns out our timing was perfect, because while you may have never heard of renters expecting employer-grade benefits, we discovered an entire industry, a growing multi-family impact ecosystem, where some of these very large, multi-billion-dollar apartment owners are working with their funders and researchers to prove that investing in these resident benefits increases owners' net profits, just like our small fund. It's amazing what a billion-dollar fund can do. But one thing we discovered is where a big chunk of all the money in this $8 trillion industry comes from. Not just from the $1 trillion that renters pump in each year. Not just from the federal government through tax breaks and discounted loans, but from your private retirement funds like Vanguard, and even public pension funds like Texas Teachers Retirement System, which I'm a vested member of. These collective community capital sources fund and own apartments all over the country. They control more than half of the apartments in the entire United States of America. So, if you're a former or current teacher, firefighter, or police officer, if you have a retirement fund, if you're a taxpayer, if you are a renter, you may not have known it, but we are all fractional investors in this ecosystem. Now, while my team is still working on scaling 24/7 access to doctors all over America, we are doing what we can to help promote renter benefits and make them mainstream. And so we have launched a set of free renter benefits for all residents in America. And in fact, it turns out that one of these benefits, a $5,000 grant to help cover the down payment and closing costs for a home, has a nearly 100% qualification rate for people here in Hidalgo County, where we are today. And we found approximately 0% of home buyers know about it. And you can bet, we are working hard to change that reality today. Thank you.